I did my presentation on human trafficking in the United States. The official definition is the use of force, fraud, or coercion to compel a person into commercial sexual acts or labor or services against his or her will. There are 6 different types as listed on the screen. The first one is forced labor, which is where you work or you do services under threat or pressure. Sex trafficking, which is illegally transporting people from one place to another for sexual exploitation. Organ trafficking, which is where you sell human organs and tissues, mostly for transplants. A child soldier is someone who's under the age of 18 and is recruited to be used as a fighter, spy, or human shield, mostly used in third world countries. And also child marriage, which is where a individual who is under the age of 18 is married together for the purpose of dowry or social pressures. And lastly, we have debt bondage, where an individual works for someone else as a form of payment, doing whatever they want them to do for the loan. The types of victims and impacts. Those who are at higher risk include women, children, low socioeconomic status, someone who has a psychological or physical issue, a disability, and immigrants, which plays into non English speakers. More specifically, cisgender girls, homosexuals, transgender, and pansexual individuals are likely to be victims of human trafficking. Those who have childhood abuse or neglect, lack of social networks, drug or substance abuse, and financial stress as well. The perpetrators in the United States typically range from the age of late 20s to early 30s, and there are many impacts of human trafficking for the victims. And we'll start with the criminal behavior, which is where the victims are less motivated to go back to school or have interest in their regular activities as they did before, which is why they ultimately result in engaging in criminal behavior for the means of survival. They're more likely to be vulnerable and easy to manipulate due to their lack of self esteem, and individuals who are survivors of human trafficking have a longer healing process than other traumas. And lastly, an important impact is trauma bonding, where the victim is emotionally attached or in love, you could say, to with the perpetrator due to their connection. So they're less likely to come forward and are hesitant because they do not want any harm to come to them. The legislation and programs, Title IX, as we learned in class, is for federal funds and protection against sexual discrimination, which has a clause about sexual exploitation, which is what sex trafficking falls under. A T visa is a temporary immigration status that allows them to stay in the United States for up to 4 years if they're survivors or victims of human trafficking. And the Palermo Protocol is in place in the European Union for the purpose of combating trafficking, and it is still in place to this day. The Clery Act requires universities to make information public regarding anything that's a safety act or a risk. Human Exploitation and Trafficking Unit in San Diego, there is one located due to its high number of traffickers in that region. And in New Jersey, they offer trafficking courses for majority of the workplaces and universities because of its high numbers as well, that they have to watch and review a course. And the Child Soldiers Prevention Act is the one, as it seems, where it tries to reduce the number of child soldiers in other countries, and it's more common in third world countries. The State Trafficking in Persons Report is a report that's released annually, which contains information about human trafficking in the United States, and the 2021 report was released by the U.S. State Department Office on July 1st. And I looked through it, and it was roughly 628 pages, and it has information on both the global context as well as in the United States. And its main purpose is to combat human trafficking. And there's many prevention tips and information and statistics as well, but there is also a gap in the statistics since many survivors do not come forward, like with other traumas and crimes. There's a gap due to the lack of reporting. And in locations, it's mostly or more likely to occur on the East Coast, as shown on the map right here, where there's major seaports and waterways, such as California, Florida, and the New York region. And the top 4 states in the United States to have the highest percentage of traffickers include California, Texas, New York, and Georgia. And some prevention and awareness. There are many indicators of human trafficking that can be available to those. Some of the signs are someone who offers a job opportunity that might seem too good to be true, or they try to hire you but there's no actual contract or anything like that, or there's one but they don't let you read it or you don't understand it. And or it could be someone who has signs of abuse, or someone who's a frequent runaway, like someone who does not stay with friends or family, where they just go from place to place constantly, or someone who works in a dangerous area without proper gear or equipment and they don't follow the legal labor guidelines. And for sex trafficking, some of the signs include someone who has a pimp or a manager, or they have a controlling partner that controls everything that they do. And it's important to support and volunteer in local organizations and centers, especially in the Central Valley. We have a couple of organizations locally which are breaking the chain: Central Valley Justice Coalition, the Fresno EOC, and the Rape Counseling Services. It's important to have support and help raise awareness of these organizations in place to help the human trafficking survivors. And it's also important to implement programs in school and staff, especially college campuses, due to its high percentage of traffickers in that region. And lastly, it's important to learn the reality of human trafficking, that it doesn't have to occur somewhere else, and that it does occur in the United States, and there is a high percentage of it, which is why it's important to raise awareness around it as well. And that's my reference, and thank you for watching.